3, 4, 5. If you'll please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the invocation given tonight by Councilman Reniger.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would you bow with me, please? Our dear gracious and Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight as humbly as we know how to ask your blessings on the city of Prattville and the citizens who live here. Lord, you know the difficulties and challenges that we face. Help us through prayer to adapt and overcome. We ask these things in Jesus' name.
Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please? Can we, please, everybody, we're getting the meeting underway, so please, Madam Clerk, can you call the roll?
Councilman Strickland. Here. Councilman Wood. Here. Councilman Argo. Councilman Miller.
Here.
Councilman Rennick.
Here.
Councilman Bowles. Councilman Faint. Here.
Having a quorum, I now call this Prattville City Council meeting to order. Councilman Argo has a conflict with work, and Councilman Bowles called a few minutes ago, and he's in traffic and should be here at any minute, so he'll be joining us momentarily. The character trait of the month is persuasiveness, understanding others so I can better communicate with them. The next item on our agenda is approval of the minutes. Gentlemen, you have had an opportunity to review the February 1st, 2011 special session, the council meeting of February 1st, 2011, and the special session minutes from February 8th. So can I have a motion to approve these two sets of minutes?
Mr. Chair, I so move.
Moved by Councilman Reniger. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Wood. Any other comments, questions on the minutes? All in favor of approving these minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Chair votes aye, and the minutes are approved. I want to welcome Councilman Strickland, newly seated in District 1 Council District as of last night, so welcome aboard. We now come to the public comment portion of the meeting. We have a very busy agenda tonight, so I'm going to ask a couple of things. One, that as usual, anyone who wants to address the council can do so. It does not have to be limited to items that are on the agenda before us. I do ask that you raise your hand. When you're recognized, you come down, give the clerk your name and address, and then present to us the information that you want to share. I would ask that you be mindful of the agenda tonight and limit your comments, if you can, to 5 minutes or less. And with that, is there anyone who wishes to address the council? Is Diane Stein-Hilbrus? Diane, I think you were going to be first because you were going to come on down and give us the presentation briefly on the city audit. And gentlemen, as a preface, this is just an introduction to the work of our auditor on the 2010 audit, and she's going to give us a brief overview and will be available after we've had time to read and digest this further at our work session next week.
Yes, thank you. Mayor, Council, I'm happy to be here on behalf of Jackson Thornton and Company to present the City of Prattville's audited financial statement for the year ended September 30, 2010. Each of you should have a copy of that at your place. We'll start with the independent auditor's report, which is included on page 1. Just to overview that the financial statements are the responsibility of the City of Prattville management, and our responsibility is to express an opinion on these financial statements. In our opinion, the financial statements present fairly in all material respects the respective financial position of governmental activities, discretely presented component units, each major fund and aggregate remaining fund information of the City of Prattville as of September 30, 2010. Pages 3 through 12 of your financial report is management's discussion and analysis of this financial statements. I think that you'll find these very helpful to you as you review the financial reports to give you some description of the statements that follow. Beginning on page 13, you have this statement of net assets. And as I begin, these have been very, this financial statement will basically summarize the financial position at September 30, 2010. And I think this financial presentation will corroborate the reduction in liquidity that the City of Prattville has faced and that resulted in the short-term financing of the $3.1 million in October of 2010. On page 13, you will see your statement of net assets. I'm going to hit the highlights. The city had total assets of $51,187,603. This is a decrease in total assets of $1.3 million over the prior year. Included in total assets, you will see capital assets not depreciated and capital assets depreciated. These have increased over the prior year, which approximately $4.4 million, less depreciation of $2.3 million, or net of $2.1 million. The city had projects incurred that resulted in capital assets: the Chevron Energy project, a new pumper truck, a VACCON truck vehicle, mobile data systems and equipment, and miscellaneous equipment and vehicles. In addition, we had donated infrastructure of $1.3 million. That makes up the increase in the capital asset column. Total liabilities, we had total assets of $51 million, total liabilities $68,396,000. That's an increase in liabilities of $3.1 million over the prior year. The current liabilities totaled $6.2 million, which was an increase of $1.4 million over the prior year. So with a decrease in current assets of $1.3 million and an increase in current liabilities of $1.4 million, that is basically a decrease of $2.7 million in the liquidity of the City of Prattville's position at September 30th. Long-term debt comprises $60,824,000 of the total balance of liabilities. The long-term debt disclosure is on page 30 of your financial statement. That actually lists the general obligation warrants by issuance. And basically, in summary, you have economic development warrants of $43 million, the Robert Trent Jones investment of $4.5 million, that was refunded in 2010, sewer infrastructure debt of $4.7 million, capital outlay and capital investments of $2 million. We refinanced a payable to Elmore County. The total on that debt is $780,000, and new capital debt in 2010 was $2.6 million, which financed some of those capital assets that I referred to earlier. Capital leases total $1.2 million at the end of September. In addition to those liabilities, on page 40, there's a $1 million liability for other post-employment benefits. That is a liability that we recognize currently for future benefits to be paid to retirees. This is not a funded liability. It's just a liability that is recognized by the city currently for what its future costs will be to fund health care benefits for retirees. The liabilities do not include debt of entities for which the city has funding agreements, and those funding agreements are outlined on page 43 of your financial statement. Basically, there are debt obligations that are issued by borrowers that the city has agreed to fund a portion of sales tax rebate incentives towards the payment of those debts. However, those debts are not do not constitute an obligation of the City of Prattville. They are obligations of those issuing that debt. Therefore, their total debt is not included on the financial statements of the City of Prattville. Referring back to page 13, the statement of net assets, We had total assets of $51 million, total liabilities of $68 million, resulting in deficit net assets of $17 million at the end of September 30, 2010. Looking at your unrestricted net assets, you'll see a deficit of $46 million. And what I will equate that to is we have debt on the books for economic development incentives that we did not obtain assets for. We are using future tax revenues to fund those debts from the growth in the retail area. While the unrestricted deficit equity was $46 million, the outstanding economic development debts were $43 million, which basically leaves us with a $2.8 million unrestricted debt. Again, that couples back to the decline in the liquidity as a result of the decreasing assets and increasing liabilities in 2010. Moving forward to page 14, I've just summarized the statement of activities, which is basically the revenues and expenses for the City of Prattville for the year ended September 30, 2010. The first column, primary government expenditures, $37,634,635. We had the expenditures increased approximately $3 million due to increases in public safety costs, an increase in public works for projects at Cooters Pond and Autauga Levee rehab project, and a reclassification of sales tax incentives, which have been moved from a net revenue to an expenditure in the 2010 presentation. The total expenditures were then funded by revenue sources of $33,117,000 compared to $31,690,000 revenue last year. That's an increase in revenues over the last year, which is attributed to sanitation fees being increased and those revenues coming in 2010, increases in grant revenues which were used to fund projects for the City of Prattville, and the $800,000 incentive which has been reclassified to an expense and was netted with revenues in the prior year. Expenditures exceeded revenues in 2010, leaving the city with $4.5 million deficit for the current period. However, this does include non-cash revenues and expenditures such as depreciation, and if you net that out of the $4.5 million, you come down to a net deficit of $2.5 million for the year ended 2010. You also have fund statements on pages which the fund statements follow on pages 15 through 18, and those will basically give you an overview of the revenues and expenditures by basically your general fund, special revenue fund, and capital project funds. Looking at page 15, which is your balance sheet, you'll see unreserved general fund deficit equity of $2.3 million. Again, this has resulted from the expenditures exceeding revenues in the current period, as reported earlier. I'm going to summarize because I know we're getting long. We will be available at the work session to answer questions and go into additional detail on these fund statements. I did want to close, and as I had reported in previous years, the city's increasing debt service level has now begun as roughly $5.3 million per year on general obligation warrants. That's 17% of total revenues or 33% of sales tax revenues. As I had indicated in prior years, it's the duty of the council to look at monitoring the operating costs of the city in order to be able to meet the debt obligations that we have incurred. As one element of strength has been that the tax revenues have remained stable over the 2010 year and as compared to the 2008 year. So the city did not have declining revenues from sales taxes during those periods. That concludes my report. Questions?
I think we're probably going to take a little bit of time to really delve into this, and I'm certain that we'll be having some follow-up.
And I did want to take a moment to thank all the department heads that have worked with us. There has been there's been some vast improvements. We've got a new software system, and you have some very capable people that have enabled us to expedite the release of our report, and we've been happy to work with them, and we appreciate all their efforts.
I appreciate that. We're likewise very proud of them.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience wish to address Mr. Whaley?
Michael Whaley. I reside at 1818 Autumn Court East, Prattville. I'm a active registered voter in District Number 5. Gentlemen, I'd like to thank you, first of all, for the opportunity to stand before this governing body tonight and to speak. The next thing I'd like to do is welcome our new counselor, Mr. Striplin. I would also like to extend, as a citizen, an apology for the unwelcomed boos that were issued last night upon your name. As a community, that saddens my heart that those things take place. I hope that you don't take it personal and you carry out the duties that are given to you. First, I want you to know that I hope you feel encouraged. I've spoken with several of you personally, and I take a time in my day daily to pray for each one of you by name. If more of our citizens did that, if more of our citizens prayed for our elected officials by name each day, we would be in a lot better shape than we are today. Usually every single morning I go through this, and most nights. Last night a little harder than some. But I got to looking at some things before I came up here today. I wanted to make sure that I had prayed about what I was going to say. And one thing that stuck out to me was a verse that I want to share with you before I continue. And that was Psalms 141, verse number 3. Set a guard over my mouth. Lord, keep watch over the door of my lips. And I felt it appropriate to share that with you tonight. I wanted to remind you, as I came before you tonight, that elected officials come and go. The backbone of our city and what makes it what it is are our employees. There have been numerous elected officials in office in the last few years of my adult life that I can remember being involved in politics, being old enough to vote, and knowing that the one thing that remains constant are the employees. And I would like to share just quickly 3 people with you tonight that are going to remain. First person that's going to remain are the city employees. Our city employees are dedicated to the jobs that they do. Our city employees will remain here. They were here. They will remain here. And they are going to do a job that they're asked to do because they're loyal employees of this city. They are the strength and the backbone of this city. We have been called the preferred community. And a lot of people look at that and gawk and say, well, that was a slogan developed by a previous administration, and we should get away from that. But gentlemen, I would ask you to look. Our citizens have bought into that. Our employees have bought into that. And we are the preferred community, the preferred place to live because of the employees that we have in the city. The second person that I would like to introduce you to tonight are what I call our city managers. They've also been called politically appointed department heads. I would like to point out that they spend countless hours, days, weeks, and months preparing budget requests that include the things that they feel are necessary to provide the best service and the best job that they can for the citizens which they serve, and those are the citizens of Prattville. That's before these budget requests ever make it to finance committees. That's before these budget requests ever make it to the entire council. They spend a lot of time on these, and they put the things in there that they think they need to offer the best service for our citizens. What they have to work with when everything is over, they take back and they do the best job at the best service that they have with what they're given, and they're given that by you as the council. They don't vote on bond issues, they don't vote on loan agreements, and they don't vote on any money that's given to any organization outside of this city. They request funds that they need to operate their departments in the ways that they feel are the best for the citizens. The third person I would like to introduce you to tonight are registered voters. There are a number of us here, and I can tell you that registered voters now used to be a dormant people. They have awakened to the things that are going on. Registered voters have realized the mess that our federal government was in, and on November the 2nd, our registered voters showed up. They realized the mess that was going on in our state government, and on November the 2nd, they showed up. Registered voters are serious. They are very serious people, and I can guarantee you it's only been 106 days since that primary election. And registered voters in our city are serious. They're taking a look at everything that happens. And I'm not standing here before you tonight threatening anyone. I know that you have a job to do, and I appreciate the position that you hold. I know that you're going to do the best that you can do, each one of you. I know that you're going to put your effort forward, and I ask you, because I've talked to most of you and I know you on a personal basis, I believe that you're believers. I believe that you believe in Christ as your Savior, and I ask you to spend some time before you make decisions praying about them. I know that you've done that. Some of you have told me that personally, and I appreciate that as a citizen. And if you haven't spent time in prayer before making decisions, then I ask you now, from this point forward, please do that. Please spend some time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Whaley. Any questions? Okay, thank you. Council. Councilman Reniger?
Give me that scripture from Psalms again.
It's 141, verse number 3.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hall?
Thank you very much, gentlemen. And I'm Gene Hall, 206 Stewart Street in Prattville, Alabama. I want to congratulate you and welcome you to this as our councilman. I won't apologize for anybody. The people that owe you an apology were the people that jumped up last night and yelled, "Oh, no, 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 boo, 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 boo." I wasn't here, but I heard it all over town. Everybody says the same thing. That should not have happened. Those people are not gentlemen, and they have no class. And getting with that, I'll go on. How much time I got?
You actually are by your first minute, so you got at least 4 more.
No, I'm fine. Like I told you, I moved to Prattville in 1967. I love Prattville. I lived all over the state of Alabama. Nowhere I ever lived accepted me as who I was. Plain old country boy, redneck boy from Butler County, and I have something in common with Elvis Presley. I'm a son of a sharecropper. Of course, I can't sing, nothing like that. But anyway, I'm in town every day, and I hear it. This kind of tells me like I made a statement one time about I think Robert Louis Stevenson in Tale of Two Cities. Some of you may remember that I talked about it when I first went to council. This is the worst of times and the best of times. The worst of times is the economy, as we all suffer for that. And we know we make decisions that down the road is not the best decision we made, but at the time it was made. And I would have made the same decision you guys did on every one that y'all did. But, well, except for last night now. Getting back to the point. It's like, excuse me, I'm getting a little emotional. It's like when we were kids, a tug of war. We played it rough. We had a mud hole. We had a rope. We chose up sides and got on each side. It's a fun game. But both sides are pulling against each other, or both of them going to get wet and muddy. The best of times, I'm telling you now, is if we all pull together, the council, city government, the people out here pull together, it can make that the best of times. Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Any questions for Mr. Hall? Okay. Ms. Finnegan?
My name is John Lee Finnegan. I live at 211 Deer Trace. Gentlemen, I'm coming before you as I am confused with what I've been reading in both the Montgomery Advertiser and the Prattville Progress regarding the upcoming budget proposal. The reason for the confusion is because of comments made during the preparation of the previous budget, not only in the papers but also at council meetings. The saga began August 16, 2010, 50 days before the approval of that budget. On August 16th, in the Advertiser, former Mayor Byard states the city is solvent and able to meet its obligation without raising a fee or any taxes. He further states we haven't had to cut services or lay off or furlough any employees. The September 7th council meeting, Byard states that the Finance Committee had a very productive 2-hour meeting, and then former council president and Finance Chairman Argo states the committee has been working feverishly and diligently. In the September 21 council meeting, Byard states he is proud to present the 2010-2011 budget, is proud of its new presentation, and Prattville is in an enviable position. Argo then states the Finance Committee met with Byard and then Finance Director Morgan regarding the budget, and that, while it may not be perfect, it is conservative and sensible. He also stated in the September 22nd Advertiser the budget is prudent. September 25th Progress, Byard is quoted from the September 21 council meeting that he was confident that the proposed budget would meet the city's financial needs for the upcoming year. In the same article, Councilman Reniger, a member of the Finance Committee, is quoted as saying at that meeting a tremendous amount of work and effort had been put into the preparation of said budget. He went on to state, Byard, the Finance Committee and city staff have already spent hundreds, that's plural, of hours preparing this document. And lastly, the September 25th Advertiser Alabama Voices column, Byard writes he is equally proud of our new budget format. This format contains the assumption on which our annual spending plan is built, and it provides a clear picture to residents and other stakeholders in the city's financial direction. We have studied economic indicators, had discussions with financial experts, and met with the City Council's Finance Committee. This budget represents a true team effort that will benefit our city. You repealed that budget, yet almost the same identical comments, such as working diligently and hundreds of hours, have been used in describing the actions being taken on this new budget. So you can understand my confusion, because now there may be furloughs, layoffs, a 1% sales tax increase, and an increase in wastewater fees. Several scenarios come to mind as to why there is such conflicting information about the city's finances. Number one, former Mayor Byard knew of the city's true financial situation and did not give that information to the Finance Committee and the Council. Number two, Byard and the Finance Committee were aware of the situation and kept it from the other council members. Number three, all of you knew and kept it from the citizens. Or number four, since the repeal of Byard's budget, the city has financially gone to hell in a handbasket in 3 short months. I am pretty sure the last scenario cannot be true, but no matter what the reason may be, the bottom line is no one, neither the former mayor nor the Finance Committee, nor, for that matter, the council did their jobs. The majority of you voted for huge incentives that were to be paid back from collection of unknown future funds. You continued to rubber stamp most of Bayard's proposals without thorough investigation, and you continued to spend money despite economic indicators to the contrary. In short, you failed miserably, and you have put the citizens of Prattville into a very precarious position. In closing, you are once again requesting citizens' questions and suggestions. Those of us who have been concerned about the city's finances for many years made a concerted effort in September 2010 to respond to a similar request. Our efforts were demeaned, and we were ridiculed for being concerned citizens. Why then should the citizens believe this current request will have a different response? As the old saying goes, once burnt, twice shy. Mayor Gillespie and councilmen, you have a chance to get it right this time. I sincerely hope it's not too late.
Thank you, Ms. Finnegan. Any questions for Ms. Finnegan? Appreciate you coming down. You first, and then the second hand on the right-hand side in the pink top. It's Mr. Jones, right? Yeah.
My name is Imam, Elder, Bishop, Rabbi, Walking John DeVoe. Mr. Striplin, I would like to welcome you to the council, and Mayor Gillespie, and all of the other council members. I commend you and salute you for your contributions to humanity. It is my position as it relates to the events that took place in the selection of the new city councilman. It was my position that even if the League of Municipalities said that that the council had the authority to utilize that process to select a councilman to fill the seat that was left vacant when Councilman Gillespie became mayor. It is my position that that was not the best approach to take in order to protect the integrity of the process, and also in order to ensure that whoever was sitting in that seat was the person that the people of District 1 wanted to sit in that seat. The best way to ensure that was through a special election that gave the people of District 1 to select for them the opportunity to select for themselves who they wanted to sit in that seat. I did the best that I could to make that, voice that opinion to all the entire council and the mayor and everyone. That was my position on that issue, that a special election, even though the other process was available to the council, that the best process would have been a special election. So the people in District 1, the decision that the city council made was the decision that the people of District 1 was supposed to be making about who they wanted to represent them in that seat. That was my position on that issue, and I wanted to go on record, and I've done the best that I can to go on record. It was the same position I heard Mayor Todd Strange say on the radio, that even though they had the same opportunities and other opportunities available to them when Councilman Willie Cook died of a heart attack in Montgomery, and when Congresswoman Martha Roby was elected to Congress and had to give up her seat on the Montgomery City Council to become Congresswoman, they had other options available to them too. But in order for all the reasons that I already stated, they too saw that the only other option to guarantee that was a special election, so that when it was all over, no one could question the integrity of the process. And it would be for certain that whoever was sitting in that seat was the person that the people of those districts wanted to sit in those seats through a special election. Lastly, I'm an African from the West African nation of Benin. I'm a Native American of the Cherokee tribe. My family has lived in the same house on the same piece of land in Prattville now for over 150 years. There's no debt on that house or that land anywhere. I was watching Dr. Henry Louis Gates on television, and he says that we Native Americans have lived in North and South America now for over 16,000 years. That's how long we've been here. And we are still here. Peace be upon you all.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Any questions for Mr. Jones? Okay. The lady in the pink. No, that was fine. Just I always ask if there are any questions, and there are not any. So we appreciate you coming down. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Jeannie Nichols. I have vested interest at 968 East Main Street. I come before you tonight because I was raised that it is a responsibility of the citizen and the voter to not only elect our officials and support the people that we elect, but also to question the decisions that they make. Y'all have got hard decisions coming before you because of things that have come in the past. I know it was 15 to 18 years ago, I sat in this very room and listened to a budget being read where the city set $5 million in the black. We had a surplus in our budget every year. We operated off of the money that was collected the year before. The budget that I heard tonight did not sound so promising. My question to you tonight, there's several of them. You've got a struggling economy and small business owners everywhere struggling to survive, to keep this community alive. We're looking at raising sales tax. We're already having to compete with the internet businesses that people are not paying their sales taxes to. And we're looking at increasing that. Other communities in our area, their sales taxes are not as high as ours are currently. And you look at sending more customers to them, more customers to Elmore County for their schools, for their children, not ours. As it stands, the cost of everything is increasing. Sales tax is based on a percentage. If sales tax based on a percentage, if goods increase, your tax base increases as well. So that in turn has more money coming in if we can keep the sales within the city of Prattville. You're looking at making cuts to your departments, asking your city employees that work so diligently for your citizens to take furloughs. I ask, everyone centers around self. Are you willing to take the same furloughs that you're asking of your employees, of our employees, the people that serve us? You have to be willing to take those same furloughs that you ask of your employees. The proposal on the I don't have much to say about the garbage issue, but I can tell you that, in my opinion, the sales tax increase is going to hurt your tax base more than it will help. And that if you ask these good people that y'all blocked 5 rows off for to take furloughs, and you ask your citizens to do without anywhere from 2 to 5 firefighters and police officers that are here to keep our community safe, you should be willing to do the same. Our firefighters and our police officers are some of the best in the state of Alabama. And I speak honestly because I've worked with a lot of them. As a volunteer firefighter for years out in the county, I worked with a good deal of these people. They are good people. They work to keep our community safe. We have a low crime rate. How long will that crime rate stay that low when our police officers are not as visible because there's not as many of them? Please keep our community safe and consider your small businesses and our city employees before you make any votes.
Thank you, Ms. Nichols. Any questions? Councilman Bowles?
Ms. Nichols, I was going to tell you on the furloughs, when this first came out and they started floating this around, I actually got with, at the time, Councilman Gillespie, and said I would support it only if I could do the same. Whatever we do to our employees, I'm going to do the same. But as an elected official, they cannot decrease our pay. They can't touch it legally, but I can write a check back. And I was planning on doing that, and I think Mayor Gillespie was planning on doing it also.
It is my understanding, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it is my understanding that voting yourself an increase during the same term is what cannot be done, but you can refuse the money, especially with the numbers that I've been given on salaries compared to some of the larger cities and the huge cities.
Yeah.
That their councilmen don't make as much as ours do, and that floored me.
Yes, ma'am.
That we're above Birmingham. Mm-hmm. I wish our firefighters and police officers could say that. I know they do too. Yeah. But
is that it, Councilman Bowles?
Yes, ma'am. I just want to let you know I plan on that. Thank you.
And actually, I did know that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Nichols. Straight back in the middle.
Good evening, Council. Jim Blink, 103 Whitetail Court. Just a couple things. Resolution 1, if you really, really want to save some money, vote it down, guys. $4,500 doesn't look like much, but when I was a kid, we played on dirt baseball fields, okay? I realize it doesn't look like much, but there's a place to start. Number 2, a couple years ago, my daughter was involved in an accident with an 18-wheeler. And I can't praise enough our fire department and our police department. Thank you guys for the outstanding professionalism that you showed at her accident. I certainly appreciate that. And third, Bill, I noticed you don't have any more gray hair based on my email. You guys have a massive challenge in front of you. And as a small business owner here in town, if the sales tax is an increase, then I get hit twice. I get hit when I go to the store and my business gets hit. That's something you got to think about. How many businesses are right on the edge right now that if we get a sales tax increase might not make it? And the other part of that is how many people are not going to come to Prattville if we're at 9 or 9.5% versus the 10% in Montgomery? Is it worth 0.5% to drive over here? Probably not. It's just something to think about. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Lane? Okay. Dr. Simmons?
Thank you. Dr. Jerry Simmons, 141 North Chestnut Street, Prattville. I wanted to talk tonight basically about two items, but before I do, I first wanted to just make some comments that since we're under new management, I'd like to see things a little bit differently. We all need to pull together. As Commander Whaley said, we're going to need a lot of help to get through this. We're going to need the Lord's help, and obviously we're going to need leadership's help. We're going to need section and department heads' help, employees, and we're going to need these citizens behind me. So we all need to pull together. So I ask you please not to try to discourage folks that come up or discredit them by labeling them as disgruntled citizens or even worse, defeated council candidates, because you need to remember that one of your defeated council candidates is now your House of Representatives representative, and I notice now a bunch of you have gotten more chummy with him now that he's in that role. So I find it interesting how politics comes full circle. So let's not discredit folks. If they come here with good ideas, use them. Two areas I wanted to cover. The first one is Project K, which of course is the Kohl's, Hobby Lobby, and Academy Sports. I've given you a spreadsheet. A bunch of you had different ideas on what that Project K really meant when you approved it back in 2008. I now have some of the figures. It was hard to get. But as you can see, the recent bond that got sold was a 5.25% adjustable rate bond for $5.6 million. And some of you thought there was just some interest. Well, the sum interest is $5.5 million for a total cost of $11.1 million. In addition, the exchange has other debt that you see down below, $3.4 million. And the other interest on the 3.4 is 3.1. So the big picture that I want you to understand right now is we have a maximum sales tax liability to the Exchange Cooperative District of $17.7 million. What does that equate to? Now, I asked the city for some sales figures. I asked them on Friday. I asked again on Monday. I've yet to get them, so I did some sales projection figures for those stores. Your sales tax rebate liability that you need to figure into your budget is in the range of $500,000 to $600,000 per year to the exchange, because remember, you receive the money from the stores, but you have a liability back to the exchange. So that's what you need to budget. The second thing is when you pass this sales tax rebate, it is absolutely essential that the 1% I'm assuming you're going to pass, that 1% needs to have an exemption from any sales tax rebate. If you fail to put an exemption in, and this is allowable, it's been done other years, if you fail to put an exemption in, an additional $180,000 is going to go for that half cent over to the exchange to help them with their debt. And that wasn't our intent when we thought about increasing sales tax. So that's imperative. The second item is Medline. I brought this up at the Industrial Relations group, and I brought it up to you. And once again, we're giving them 30-some acres of land. It has an approximate value of about $350 to $450, depending on how you value land. There is no reversionary clause. I urge you that we're under a lease with Medline right now. The lease cannot be turned into a deed until the grant money is received. While we're under a lease, please sign a reversionary clause that says if Medline should go bankrupt, the land comes back to Prattville. I don't want it to go to the creditors. And some of you have said, well, they won't agree to that. Medline could care less if they're bankrupt what happens to the land. The land was given to them to create jobs and infrastructure for us, and we need to decide if there's a new purchaser whether we want to offer another incentive. So it's imperative that you go ahead and create a reversionary clause for that. And of course, some of you said, well, gee, they have a great rating. Don't worry about Medline. Well, let me tell you, Goldman Sachs had a great rating, and you saw how quick they went down the tubes. Then we danced with Venture. You may remember the Tier 1 Hyundai. We danced with them until the band stopped playing, and everyone else got a Tier 1 company, and we ended up with a goose egg. So please don't argue with me that they have a great rating. Things change overnight. You need to do a reversionary clause. It would be foolish not to. Other than that, does anybody have any questions on the Project K? I know.
Councilman Reniger.
Dr. Simmons, you bring up several very good points, and thank you very much for that. One of the things that I brought up in deliberation in the Finance Committee was the exclusion of the 1% or 0.5% sales tax on Bass Pro and Project K. I was told by those that should know that the Bass Pro deal should be no problem, but that we could not exclude Project K. If you have information, a law or something that would permit us to do that, I would be very interested in knowing that.
I'll check on that, because I think that's important, that we not pay $180,000 to some cooperative to reduce their debt, especially after they've been uncooperative.
If you would research that for me and get that back to me, I need some concrete evidence that says we can't exclude that.
Okay, I will do that, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Simmons. We appreciate you coming down. Ms. Cummins?
Patricia Cummins, 1208 Kenwood Court in Prattville. Good evening, gentlemen.
Ms. Cummins, if you could pull the mic down just a little closer. There you go.
That better? Okay. President Miller, gentlemen, it's unfortunate that Councilman Argo is not present tonight, as most of my comments apply equally to all of you, with the exception of the newest member, Councilman Striplin and Councilman Bowles. In my opinion, Councilman Bowles and our past District 1 Councilman, now Mayor Gillespie, did their best to oppose the rampant spending of the past few years. I sat here last night and I listened to Councilman Argo's speech about wanting an audit, an investigation, a report, anything that would substantiate the city's financial crisis. Tonight I heard Ms. Finnegan remind us of a statement made by former Mayor Byard 50 days before you, the council, approved the 2010-2011 budget. The mayor said the city is solvent and is able to meet its obligations. So why then, I ask you, did he have to ask for a $3.1 million loan days after the budget was approved? Why did Councilman Reniger state that a tremendous amount of work and effort had been put into the preparation of that budget? Hundreds of hours were spent preparing this budget, according to Councilman Reniger. The budget was a farce, gentlemen. It was neither conservative nor prudent. It was a disaster and it had to be repealed. Do you honestly expect us to believe that hundreds of hours were spent on this so-called budget? Didn't you notice that under capital outlays for the fire department, almost $2 million were listed for fire stations that haven't been built? Did you honestly believe in October of 2010 the city was in a position to finance the building of 2 additional fire stations? I know you all received copies of the city's audit reports, just like the one we heard tonight. Each year a representative from Jackson and Thornton, the city's auditors, presents the audit report and is available to answer your questions. Mr. Argo has had his audit reports. In fact, he has had them for a number of years. Gentlemen, I don't know what you did with the information from these reports, but based on your reactions to the city's current financial crisis, it appears that all of you, including Mr. Argo, the chair of the Finance Committee, ignored it. It was obvious in the 2008 report the city was in trouble. And by the time the 2009 report was published, any educated user of financial information could tell the city was on the verge of bankruptcy. So what did the Finance Committee and the City Council do with this information? Absolutely nothing. The City Council, you gentlemen, continued to approve pay raises and additional indebtedness. Now you're all acting surprised at the state of the city's finances. Gentlemen, in my opinion, you have aided and abetted Jim Byard in getting us to this point, and the least you can do is serve out the remainder of your terms with no pay and no benefits. For many years, now, you've been collecting pay and benefits that, in my opinion, you haven't earned. Now you want to talk about layoffs and furloughs. increased fees and taxes. President Miller, Councilman, you have been a major contributing factor to the city's current financial crisis. It's time to pay the piper. No pay, no benefits for the remainder of your terms. If you can't or won't do this, step down and let us elect people who will serve us, the taxpayers, rather than themselves. Gentlemen, you should be ashamed of yourselves. You've been derelict in your duties, and not one of you has apologized to those who elected you. When are you going to realize that you were elected to serve us, the taxpayers of Prattville? When are you going to give us some credit? I've had enough. You sit up there and act surprised by what's happening. When are you going to man up and admit you did this? The Finance Committee, chaired by Councilman Argo, the City Council, and last but not least, former Mayor Jim Byard, have brought Prattville to its knees. And now you have to depend on us, the taxpayers, to bail you out. Step number 1, gentlemen, no pay, no benefits. Fix this mess and stop trying to act as if you had no part in it. Step number 2, get behind our new mayor. Give him 100% of your support. It's time to do what you should have done years ago. Take advice from someone who just may have the answers to our problems, because, gentlemen, you certainly don't. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cummins. Any questions for Ms. Cummins? Thank you. We appreciate you coming down. Yes, sir.
Stephen Brooks, 167 West Main. Councilman, Mr. Mayor, gathered dignitaries. Just a couple of little things here. I guess I'm the third one at bat for small business, and I bring to you the question of, we're at 8.5. We're looking at going to 9.5, a full percent. Montgomery is now at 10. Why do I bring that up? Because in my shop, what we hear is we like coming to Prattville. We like taking a road trip up here. We like shopping here because you're at 8.5. If gasoline, which is now $3 a gallon, goes to $5 a gallon, no more road trips. It's going to be easier to stay down there. Please, gentlemen, for we small business people here in Prattville, take a hard look. If you have to go up, do the figures, do the math. 0.25%, 0.5%, but let's not hit a full 1% all at one time, gentlemen. Let's take it a little bit at a time, and let's readdress this. Second thing that I'd like to talk just briefly about, we have a gorgeous historic downtown. It is absolutely beautiful. Some disturbing things have come by, which I don't care to bring up because it's just too beautiful an area down there. Let's keep it that way. Let's work towards the staff that has put in countless hours down there, keeping that a beautiful area. We have tons of folks that come down. Carol and I see it when we come to work. They're shooting film in the morning. They're out there painting the buildings that are down there, that are enjoying it, and the visitors that come here, that do come here drawn by events such as Navstar and then come back and frequent our businesses. And they say to us, we've come back because this is so beautiful. We take a road trip back now and enjoy the environment that has been provided downtown. The beauty of the flowers. Ken and his crew do a superb job. And you know what really I get a kick out of? I love seeing that uniform coming around in the police vehicle. I like that feeling of safety, and I like the way my customers say to me, we enjoy shopping here at Prattville because we feel safe. We feel secure. Gentlemen, these are the positives that we have to carry on. We have to keep this quality of life that is exhibited here in Prattville. Please, stay the course. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who wants to address the council? Mr. Mullins.
Dennis Mullins, 111 Daniel Drive. As you can see, Mr. Chair, I do also put in hundreds of hours worth of work, and I've spoken to you about several issues before, so I won't bring that up tonight about the garbage, but you know how I feel about that, and I think you all know where we are on that. You heard Diane talk about that sanitation is in the black, and it's in the black considerable amount, so maybe one day that you will release those numbers to the people what they really are. Before I get started on my talking points tonight, I want to talk about a little episode that happened to me this morning. I came down to City Hall looking for, I had a copy of the agenda, and I was looking for the actual full resolutions and ordinances so I could prepare myself to speak. So when I came down to Mayor Gillespie's office, I asked one of the employees, can I get a copy of the ordinances and resolutions in full? I was told that they don't do that here. I said, okay, then how can we intelligently get up here and speak to you gentlemen if we don't know the meat that's in these resolutions that you are going to be voting on tonight? But rest assured, here it is. Have no fear. I have it. And what I'm going to be talking to you tonight about is the two increases that you're proposing to for us, the citizens, as far as the sales tax and a sewer rate increase. I think what most people don't really understand is, and I hear a lot of people get up here talking, is that they don't truly know the severity that this city is in. I've talked to hundreds of citizens, and they're clueless to what's going on in this city right now. So I'm just going to spell it out just briefly if I can. You passed a $37 million pie-in-the-sky revenue number budget, when in actuality, the number should have been more like 30 million. Okay? Now, you've got to cut $7 million out of this budget. $7 million. There's only two places that you can get that from. Well, three places, really, if you want to tax and raise fees, like a national renowned economist, David Buckner, said that municipalities would do, and that's exactly what you're doing, to cover for your own shortfalls. So now you've got to cut $6 million. Two places you can get it from. Wages and benefits, which is right now at a $30 million budget, is going to be 71% of your budget. 71%. Gentlemen, that's outrageous. That's unsustainable. You've got to cut $6 million out of wages and benefits. Okay? You've got to get another $1 million out of operating. That'll get it down to a balanced budget. Okay? But now, that's only the $6 million. Keep in mind, as of January, you had a $2.5 million in the rears to vendors. You owed vendors $2.5 million that haven't been paid, some of them, since June. Okay, since June. Now you add that to the $6 million. What is that? 8.5. Now keep in mind, you've got a $3.1 million bridge loan note that's due May the 2nd. I have the actual note right here. That's due May the 2nd. $3.1 million in full that you paid debt on this past November. So add that to it, you're at roughly $11 million in debt coming out of the hole trying to do a budget. $11 million in debt. Okay? Now, people, that's the severity of it. Now, keep in mind, you're only supposed to, by law, I think, I've got to find the law, only supposed to expend 90% of your anticipated revenues. So if we have anticipated revenues of $30 million, guess what? Our expenditure and our budgets should be $27 million. So if we go by law, in essence, we are $14 million in the hole. $14 million. I don't know where we're going to get it at. One cent, even though these people talk about a 1 cent increase, 1 cent ain't going to get it. $10 increase on our sewer fees. It's not going to get it. It's not going to be enough. I don't know what we're going to do. We put it in y'all's hands to figure it out. And hopefully we can all get together. I'm reminded of a quote, and I'll leave it at this. The late, great Martin Luther King Jr. We might have all come here in a different boat. but we're in the same one now. We've got to work together, okay? But you need to be willing to listen as well as we need to be willing to work with you. We've got to trust you. Trust has got to be earned back now because you have broke that umbilical cord of trust with all the falsehoods that you've been doing over the past few years. But we're willing to work with you because we have to, because we are in that same boat. We're here if you need us. We want to be a part of this process. I want to be a part of this process. I have a lot of information to share. I'd love to share it with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mullins. Any questions? Councilman Bowles?
Mr. Mullins, I want to just remind you real quick on the last budget, that's $37 million. I did not vote for that budget. I fought that budget.
I know you did, as well as Mayor Gillespie did.
I was ridiculed for fighting that budget.
You were.
Called every name in the book for fighting that budget.
I was at that work session.
Thank you, Councilman Bowles. Thank you, Mr. Mullins.
Thank you.
Okay. I don't see any other hands, so I wanted to recognize Boy Scout Troop 79. Are they in the audience? No. Okay, we will now turn to the mayor's report. Boy Scouts here. Is the Boy Scout troop here? Okay, if you're there, yeah, I see a scout. Okay, I'm recognizing Boy Scout Troop 79, Samuel Garris, Mac Thompson, Sean Birch, and Scoutmaster Darren Garris. Welcome tonight. You are getting... This is not our ordinary and usual council meeting, so we certainly appreciate you joining us tonight. All right, well, Mayor, you're next on the agenda, so...
Well, this is Zachary. I couldn't pronounce his last name, so I'm going to let him do that.
Pugliani.
Okay, that's close enough. Thanks for coming out. We appreciate it because you are our future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. It's coming down the road. There is the mayor's budget proposal that I'm presenting to you guys tonight. Thank you.
If you can, I've been asked if you can get up close to the mic because there are people in the hallways and it would help them to be able to hear.
I can guarantee you one thing, there is a lot of time and love and sweat and tears in this budget. I present to you a $33.6 million balanced line item budget. I'm proud to be here with it. I've had a lot of personal help from our department heads. The employees themselves have come to me and helped me with this budget also. It's been a difficult time. We are in a difficult time now. With everybody's help, we can get through it. I think the name calling and so forth, that should be behind us. We should have one road to go, and that's forward. I personally have made some mistakes, but I think that we can overcome all this. One thing that we do need to do is pull together, not pull apart. This is my first budget. I was very constrained by time on it, but because of especially Doug Mosley and Lisa Thrash, we've been able to pull it together.
Mayor, if you could, the mic, is it?
This is my first budget. Hopefully the next budget that we have before us, we will have a lot more in it, a lot more time to spend on it than what we've had in the last 4 weeks. I want to commend everybody sitting up here, the council. I know we have worked together on it. The employees are the backbone of our community, of our family business here, which is a service-oriented business. And we've been doing everything that we possibly can to keep these services going, which are police, fire, streets, sanitation, wastewater, leisure services, and so forth. There's been a lot of sleepless nights for me lately. But I know that we can overcome this if we pull together. You will see in this budget an increase wastewater fees. This department has been running in the red for a few years. So you will see that at this point in time, what we have done, what I have proposed, is a $10 per household residential, commercial increase until we have a study done, which they tell me should take 3 to 4 months to get it back. And if you guys do decide to pass that proposal in the next couple of weeks at our next council meeting, that is integrated into this budget. Our last 3 years actuals showed approximately $30.2 million. If we had stayed on that line, stayed with that number, would have had to lay off over 80 city employees. And with that, it would have crippled the city. I am a member of a small family business here also. I lived here. I work here. My family is here. This is a difficult time. And this is the best I could do in a short period of time. So please call a work session for this. Let's work this out and move forward for the better of Prattville. One thing I can say that if we do adapt, we can overcome through prayer. So please, let's pray together and work together and move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Are there any questions for the mayor? Councilman Reniger.
Mayor Gillespie, let me compliment you on your very eloquent presentation. I do have a few questions. Your budget is based on furloughs, reduction in staff, increasing revenue by increasing sales tax, and sewer fees. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Also, with the help of with the department heads and the city employees, we have found other particular areas that we've been able to reduce spending in without compromising any services. And we've recognized several areas that internally that we have already corrected that is helping bring this budget to be a balanced line item budget.
So that would be classified under operating expenses then?
Yes.
Thank you.
That was all. Councilman Bowles.
I have two questions also. Can we get this in disc form? Because I'm sure tomorrow I'll be inundated at the store.
It will be on the website sometime tomorrow morning, and we should be able to get it on disc for you also.
Second of all, I'm behind you. I always have been, always will be. Thank you.
Any other questions for the mayor? The next item on our agenda is report from council and special committees. Councilman Striplin, I'll go ahead and inform you that your committee appointments will be forthcoming when we get an opportunity to meet later this week. And Essentially, it will be the seats that have been left open when Councilman Gillespie moved out of that position. So I'll go over that with you, and that's the section. This part of the agenda is where we report if we've got an update on those committee activities. Councilman Wood? Councilman Reniger?
No, sir.
Councilman Bowles?
I don't have a committee meeting, but I would like to indulge the council and the audience for 2 minutes, please.
Yes, sir.
I want to start off with the department heads. I do apologize about last night. My golden rule is not to speak when I'm mad, and I was very angry, and I took it out on you guys, and I do apologize. But I do want to say that we do have a lot on our plate with the sale tax, with the furloughs, with the layoffs, with everything we're looking at. And I want to remind everybody's saying, why don't y'all be more transparent, And I'm going to be very transparent real quick, and I hope you can handle this, because this is what we're facing. First, when David Whetstone passed away, we left this city, he left the city $5 million in the black, operating great. When Jim Byard left this city, he left us $62 million in debt. We as a council, I have had numerous people saying, why didn't you know we were as broke as we are? I can assure you I went to the banks because I fought these budgets and asked to see the bank accounts and was told that I can't see them because I'm not a signee. Nobody on this council can see them. So nobody on this council was aware of what the true numbers were until Mayor Gillespie stepped in, because we were lied to. We were told that we had $1,400,000 in our insurance fund, which we're self-insured, which is y'all's money, not mine. We actually had $8,000. Yes. Gasoline tax, 2%. Every time you fill up in Prattville, we have 2% to repave our streets. Should be going on right now. We were told we had $750,000 in that fund. That fund doesn't even exist today. No money. Sewer tapping fees. Well, I was told we had $150,000 in that fee. No, $25,000. Golf tournament. Do I have to say any more about that? Department heads, I was very angry, and I do apologize, but some of it is y'all's fault too. Because come September, whenever you have some money left and we were working under a lump sum budget, and let's just say you had $10 million and you spent $9 million, some of you guys would go spend the other $1 million on whatever, so you made sure you had $10 million the next budget. That didn't help us. Not a bit. So this is the gross reality of the situation that we're facing today. We are all in survival mode. This council has worked tirelessly, and I can promise you guys that you know I fought it from day one, but these men have spent hundreds of hours trying to fix this mess once they realized where we were, because they were fooled too. So I know a lot of people are very angry at every one of us, and you ought to be. We deserve it. But we did not have the whole truth. We were working off half-truths. And I can promise you, if you're in our seat today and you were working on half-truths, you'd be sitting in the same bucket we're sitting in. Because unless you're being told the truth and completely honest and know the accounts, and you're not able to get the accounts, you have to operate by faith. And that's what we were doing until we were bitten. When it came back that we had to borrow that $3.1 million. Once that happened, all these men reacted properly because they no longer were acting by faith. They have fought this thing, and I applaud them, and I stand neck to neck, toe to toe with these guys now because they're doing what's right. Their families are suffering. Their jobs are suffering. They're making less money because they're putting all their time into this to save our city. So I please beg you guys, get behind them. Support them 100%, and you better start praying because we need God on our side now more than ever. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Bowles. Councilman Fank? Thank you. Gentlemen, we'll now move into the regular agenda. Item number 1 is a resolution to authorize the release of funds to purchase side from 231 Turf Market for the David D. Whetstone Sports Complex. This was held from our February 1st, 2011 meeting. Is there any further discussion on item number 1?
I would just like to offer, I sponsored this. I talked to Drew Peterson about it, and what we've got is an issue out there where the ball field was built on I guess the old landfill, and it is sinking, and this is a problem that does, every 2 to 3 years we have an issue with it sinking. We brought in dirt to backfill, and this is for the turf, for the sod to go back on top of it. So that's the reason for this on the agenda.
Thank you, Councilman Fank. Any further discussion? Councilman Bowles?
I would like to probably ask Drew. I've been doing a little research on this myself. Apparently we could bring in a truckload of sand, some seed, throw the seed out, keep the kids off of it for about a month and a half, and it costs us about $450 instead of $4,500. What's your thoughts on that? I hate to throw you on the bus. I should have called you, but I've had in my head and other things.
That's fine. We looked at that, and we were not confident that the seed would come up in time for them to be able to play March 26th, so they wouldn't have a field to play on. The only way that we feel that confident that they can be able to play on March 26th on this field is if we put the sod down, because the grass can't come up in a month.
How long does it take sod to grab?
Well, we have been relocating sod from other parks and putting it on like Bell Park or a place like that. And even in this cold weather, some of that sod has rooted in about 2 weeks.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor of resolution number 1 signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Chair, that was Councilman Bowles. Chair votes aye, and resolution. I'm sorry, Councilman Striplin. You're abstaining. Okay, which is perfectly understandable since you've not had time to get your feet wet. So that means that resolution number 1 passes by a vote of 4-1. Okay. Item number 2 is an ordinance to amend Ordinance Book 95.
Mr. Chair.
Councilman Reniger.
I think we have to hold this because it's an expenditure of funds, don't we, Council?
You're talking about resolution number 1.
Do we have to hold that or suspend the rules?
It was held from the last meeting.
My mistake. Thank you.
Ordinarily, you'd be correct, but we had already done that. Item number 2 is an ordinance to amend Ordinance Book 95, page 19, to add Section 11 regarding the imposition of certain sales and use taxes. Councilman Reniger, would you introduce this ordinance?
Yes. Be it ordained that the Ordinance Book 95, page 19 is hereby amended as follows. Section 11, imposition of additional limited duration tax. In addition to the taxes here and above set forth, there shall be an additional 1% tax levied under Section 2A, 2B, 2F, commencing on the first day of April 2011 and ending on the 31st day of March 2013. At the expiration of this 2-year period, the additional tax described in this Section 11 shall decrease to 1/2 of 1% for tax levied under Sections 2A, 2B, and 2F, commencing on the first day of April 2013 and ending on the 31st day of March 2016. That the tax collected under this section herein, after deducted for expenses of collection, shall be expended only for existing debt service of the City of Prattville. This ordinance shall become effective upon its passage and execution by provided law. Mr. Chair, I so move.
There's a motion to move this ordinance. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Wood. And this ordinance, as a point of order, will hold until our next council meeting. Item number 3 is an ordinance to amend the Prattville City Code, Article 3, Section 13-111, regular monthly charges, and Section 13-112, same minimum flat rate. Councilman Fank, can you introduce this ordinance, please?
Be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Prattville that City Code Article 3, Section 13-1112, adopted July 6, 2006, is hereby deleted in its entirety. Be it further ordained that City Code Article 3, Section 13-112, adopted on July 6, 2006, is hereby amended as follows. C. In addition to the charges levied in subsection A and B contained herein, there is established a $10 per month per customer surcharge. This ordinance shall become effective upon its passage and execution as provided by law.
Moved by Councilman Fink. Do I hear a second?
Second the motion.
Seconded by Councilman Reniger. This one, by point of order, will also hold until our next regularly scheduled council meeting. Our fourth item is a resolution to authorize and approve temporary mandatory furloughs of City of Prattville employees and adopting a furlough policy and administrative guidelines. Councilman Wood, can you introduce this resolution, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Whereas the current economic climate in the United States is a challenging one and presents governments, particularly those at the state and local levels, with the need to take measures to reduce expenditures to avoid fiscal deficits and budgetary shortfalls, and whereas the City of Prattville is not immune from the nation's current economic climate and has experienced a decline in revenue and anticipates continued fiscal challenges through the remainder of fiscal year 2010-2011. And whereas, in an effort to address the realities of today's economic climate, the City of Prattville has determined that the implementation of temporary mandatory furloughs of City of Prattville employees is the most appropriate course of action to ensure the least impact to the employees of the City of Prattville while still providing services and quality of life to citizens of the City of Prattville. And whereas while the City of Prattville anticipates that a furlough equal to 1 8-hour workday every month for each employee will accomplish these goals. For fire departments, 24-hour shift, 12 hours is necessary. Wastewater departments, 12-hour shifts, 12 hours is necessary. The length and frequency of the furlough may require adjustment to respond to the economic realities presented to the City of Prattville, whereas the shifts of some employees differ in both length of shift and frequency of shift assignment, making it necessary for department heads to adjust furloughs so that the new result is equal for all employees, regardless of the length and frequency of normal shift assignments. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the mandatory furlough policy and administrative guidelines expressed in this resolution and the attached exhibit are adopted and ratified as the policy of the City of Prattville. Be it further resolved, the mayor is hereby authorized to take all actions necessary to implement a temporary mandatory furlough of City of Prattville employees for the fiscal year 2010-2011 as necessary. Be it further resolved, the mayor will update the council regularly on the economic condition of the city and its impact upon the need for continuation and expansion of this policy. Mr. Chair, I so move.
Moved by Councilman Wood. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilman Reniger. Is there any discussion on this resolution? Councilman Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to take the opportunity to address this. I guess for the last several weeks I've been in the position of being a part of the Finance Committee. Initially, as the mayor reported, the first item brought before that Finance Committee was to cut 84 employees. And as all of you all know, to cut 84 employees would be devastating. The second thing was to cut 40-something employees, and so on. So we kept working and we kept working, and we decided to look at the possibility of furloughs and keep what I'm hearing tonight, most of the employees working and the citizens of Prattville getting the type of services that they deserve. Now, granted, I've heard a lot of people say that all of this is our fault. Maybe a good portion of it is, but not all of it. Maybe a good portion of it is. And that's why I'm working hard and diligent as part of a committee that I was not a part of to help resolve it. Let me give you an example of something and give you something to think about. Most of you read the paper every day. Camden, New Jersey, for instance, massive layoffs, deep trouble, police force cut in nearly half, 167 police officers, 65 fighters, and others, total 300 employees laid off to balance a $26 million budget deficit. And I bring all this out for the simple reason, what if this council just came to the conclusion that, yeah, let's cut 80-something employees and move on? So the furloughs are one of the best things on the table right now, along with the other proposals that the mayor have before us. Tax increases. Might as well speak on it while I'm speaking. Nobody likes it. I don't like it. But it's a necessary evil. And it's also a necessary evil that may increase or may decrease. Just as one of the gentlemen said earlier, there's a possibility that somebody may not shop because of the tax increase. But these are the times that we are dealing with. We didn't create a federal deficit. We didn't create a state deficit. But the state over there is getting ready to lay off people. We need to pack it out just like you are now. Same thing you're doing here. We are not immune from this, just like this resolution say. The state of Alabama invests millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars for incentives. Why are they talking about cutting services and laying off people? Can anybody tell me? What's the difference? It's the times we're living in. Whether you have made a economic development investment or not. Because the state has done it over and over and over and over again in the tune of 300, 400, 500, and 600 millions of dollars, and they're still laying off people. With that being said, maybe that will give you some idea of what's happening in the United States and around this world. There's an economic situation. If not, ask the state government to stop investing millions of dollars in plants that are bringing in thousands of jobs that are supporting your families. Back to this, furloughs is the best thing. The council will furlough themselves. The mayor will furlough themselves. We will continue to work hard. I appreciate my constituents who have called me. I really do. And I ask that each one of you continue to pray, and we will work through this. Mr. Chair, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman Wood. Councilman Fank.
Thank you, Councilman or Council President Miller. I just wanted to comment and I guess offer something here, just some discussion on the item before us. We're going to have coming from the floor an incentive, a retirement incentive for a number of our employees. That I understand this is going to be a period of 30 days, a 30-day window of opportunity. This resolution before us relating to furloughs is probably still going to be necessary, even with the incentive retirement. But it's going to definitely impact the number, the plan. I think it probably will impact the scope of the furloughs. What I would like to offer is a motion to hold this until such time that we exhaust the 30 days for the retirement incentive so that we'll know the exact scope of what this will impact. And I offer that as a motion to hold this, I guess, for 30 days, or I'm not sure if that falls right on the next council meeting. I understand the critical nature of this. I'm just wanting to tie it to the health insurance incentive so that we know exactly the pool that so we can have some accuracy in the resolution and how we want to move forward with this.
Okay, so you're making a motion to hold this until...
I don't have a calendar in front of me, but I would say, at least the council meeting after we've exhausted the 30 days. And I apologize that I do not have a calendar in front of me.
Well, have you made the motion?
I will hold on the motion.
Considering it as discussion.
Yes.
Thank you. Councilman Striplin.
In the brief moments that I've had to look at this, I have a little concern with the language. It says that implementation is temporary. And then in the detail information, it says that furlough days must be taken no later than September 24th, 2011. I would like to see that if we are going to do this and it needs to be done, then we need to put a back end on it in the resolution, in my opinion. And the benefits of that is at some point, if we are in a position where we have to hire new personnel and there's a furlough policy, and the furlough policy has no back end, that employee may or may not choose to come to work for us at some point. So from that perspective, I think it would be prudent for us to put something on the back end. If we need to continue it for 6 months or whatever, then it would fall at the same time the next budget is discussed, since it has an expiration seemingly of September 24th of 2011.
Can I ask Ms. Thrash, can you come down and help us clarify some of these? As written, it covers the remainder of the fiscal year for 6 months, each employee 1 day per month. Is that correct?
Yes.
And there's language in the policy for new hires, and this may address some of your...
I understand the new hires are covered. My concern is if someone comes in and wants to apply to the city and we have a document that we don't know when the furloughs are going to stop, they may not choose to work with us.
And I think is this written for just 6 months?
The intent of this policy was to carry us through the end of this fiscal year. And after that, if the policy were to be, if we were going to continue with furloughs, the council would have to amend this document because this only takes us through the end of the fiscal year.
So that would require further action on the council's part to go beyond the 6 months?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Councilman Striplin, does that...
If our legal counsel concurs that implementation of a temporary mandatory furlough is the same thing as no later than September 24th, I will accept that.
And counsel? You concur? Okay. Thank you, Councilman Striplin. Councilman Wood?
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you, Councilman, for bringing it up. I also, Mayor, if you will shed some light on this based on what Councilman Fink is asking. It's my understanding that the furloughs for the next 6 months are part of the revenue source that you are proposing in this particular budget. Is that correct?
Not necessarily the revenue source, but the reduction.
Revenue reduction. Okay.
I'm sorry, expenditure reduction.
It's part of the reduction in expenditures, and given Councilman Fink's question, Ms. Thrash, how much window of time do we have to look at savings that might accrue from a retirement incentive that potentially, if I understood his question right, could be used to offset the magnitude of the furloughs?
Depending on the time frame that you put on the retirement resolution, I believe that that's going to be a 30-day window. Employees who indicate or declare their intentions to retire within that window, the earliest they would be eligible to retire is April 1st. That is the soonest that RSA could process a retirement request. The furloughs for the rest of this year, you're asking me how those two intermingle? Was that your question?
If any savings, and we don't know what it might be, that accrued from employees availing themselves of the retirement incentive, those dollars that would be saved, would they potentially, if they were potentially used to offset the magnitude of the furlough, suppose it reduces it from 5 days to 6 days to 4 or whatever, time-wise, how do the two play out? And so what window of time do we have with this resolution before us?
The furloughs would begin in April. The month of April is the plan, the budgeted plan to reduce expenses is how the furloughs were based. So if you can't retire until April 1st, they're both, they're coinciding in that amount. I guess if you pass the budget prior to April 1 and furloughs are a part of it, that works. If not, I think you would have to look at the budget plan again as far as furloughs go if you want to reduce that.
So one scenario, though, just looking at the retirement incentive and the furloughs might be on the back end, it reduces that 5th or 6th day.
Absolutely. It could reduce those. It could reduce the number of furlough days if you gentlemen chose to do that. Yes.
Depending on the amount.
Yes.
And certainly we're looking at all sorts of opportunities to identify additional savings. So based on that, Councilman Fink? Councilman Bowles?
Approximately how much money is this saving us off the top of your head, approximately?
The furloughs?
Yes, ma'am.
I believe the six furlough days were a little over $348,000. That's including benefits, which are FICA and retirement.
Hang on one second. I have a calculator on my phone. $58,000. So if we did this, it would cost us $58,000.
If you divide that number by 6
Yes.
and that's your answer, then yes, sir, that's correct.
And I got a new calculator, by the way.
Anything further?
Yes, I would make that. I would offer that motion to hold. I guess until the April 5th meeting that we have. I'm not sure if we can still pass the budget, the first meeting in March, and then and go back and amend that line item in the budget at the April 5th meeting to reflect the changes that we would have. But I would offer that in the form of a motion.
Can I ask you if you'd be willing to ask to hold it until our next meeting and not vote on it tonight while we give us some time to
Yeah, that's fine.
put
Yeah,
some
I
more
would hold till the
analysis
next meeting.
to it?
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. I would ask to hold this till the next meeting. Because very well.
Mr. Chair.
No, this one doesn't have to hold automatically like the ordinances did. So, yeah, we can. Councilman Wood?
I want to make sure I'm clear. You withdrawing your motion, Councilman Fink? Is that
Yes, for the 30-day window. Yes, you are.
call for the question?
Well, I thought you were saying you wanted to hold it until our next meeting, March 1st. to give us?
Yes, that was my intent, but I believe there was a procedural position just played that when I acknowledged that I would remove the 30-day window, I believe Councilman Wood used a procedural order that had it call the question, which now allows this to be before us as is, without an extension.
Mr. Chair,
Okay.
Can I elaborate on why I'm doing this?
Yes.
We all know we're trying to save money, and this is imminent what we're going to do. And Councilman Fink, I know what you're trying to do also. In 2 weeks, I think we can do it in 2 weeks also. That's why I'm going in and calling for the question. And let's get this on the books and get started with it. That's all.
So your motion is call the question? Okay, and my understanding is call the question requires a second. Call the question?
Mr. President.
That doesn't require a second. Call the question, I believe, does require a second because, yeah,
Mr. President.
call the question does.
Mr. President.
Who's? Okay.
Below me over here again.
Let me get this procedural thing. Call the question does require a second and a vote. Otherwise, any individual could cut off debate at any point in any discussion. So, Councilman Wood has made a motion to call the question on this resolution. Do I hear a second?
I'll second the motion. Let's move on.
Seconded by Councilman Reniger. Any debate on any discussion on the motion to call the question? All in favor? We've been asked to do a roll call. Okay, roll call on the motion to call the question concerning the vote on the resolution.
Councilman Striplin? Councilman Wood?
Aye.
Councilman Miller?
Aye.
Councilman Reniger? Councilman Bowles?
Aye.
Councilman Fink?
Nay.
And the question is called by a vote of 5-1. That means we effectively have ended debate and discussion on this resolution. It's now up for a vote. All in favor of this resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
Nay.
Chair votes aye, and this resolution passes 5-1. Mr. Mayor, do you have any closing comments? Wait. Oh, man. Can you tell I'm ready to... Is that a psychological thing or what? I'm sorry. We do have a resolution. We have ordinance number 5. Okay. To adopt and enact a new code for the city of Prattville, Alabama, providing for the repeal of certain ordinances not included therein, providing a penalty for the violation thereof, providing for the manner of amending such code, and providing when such code and this ordinance shall become effective. This item was held from January 18th, and subsequently on February 1st we had a substitution, which is the one that is held until this meeting. Is there any further discussion on this ordinance? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Chair votes aye, and this ordinance passes. Is there anything to come from the floor?
Yes.
Councilman Reniger?
Mr. Chair, I have a resolution I'd like to bring from the floor. But before I do, I would like a point of privilege, please.
Yes, sir.
Mayor Gillespie, in your proposed budget, does that not include eliminating the health insurance for the members of the City Council and the part-time appointed officials?
Yes, sir, it does.
Resolution is as follows. Whereas the City of Prattville currently has no policy in place to reward employees with any retirement incentives, And whereas the City of Prattville desires to offer employees who are eligible to retire the incentive of individual group health insurance coverage through the group health care plan of City of Prattville for a period not to exceed 3 years or until their 65th birthday. Now therefore be it resolved that the individual group health care coverage available through the City of Prattville is hereby offered to eligible retirees with 25 years of service or 10 years of service at age 60. Be it further resolved that this incentive package is available for a period of 30 days to employees who retire within the designated time period, and said offer shall expire 30 days from date of passage. Mr. Chair, I so move.
Moved by Councilman Reniger. Do I hear a second? Second. Seconded by Councilman Bowles. Any discussion on this resolution?
I believe it has to be, the rules have to be suspended, and I'll offer that suspension.
And motion to suspend the rules by Councilman Fank. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Wood. This resolution is now properly before us. Is there any discussion on this resolution? Councilman Fank?
I believe we have to vote on the suspension of the rules, President Miller.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion to suspend the rules? All in favor of the motion to suspend the rules signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Chair votes aye, and the rules are suspended. This resolution is now properly before us, I hope. Any discussion on this resolution? Okay, all in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Chair votes aye, and this resolution is passed. Now, for closing comments. Mayor?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Just want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I know it's been a very difficult, I know the last month has been very difficult, and probably been very difficult for all of the city employees for the past, since October, November. It's been difficult for us up here also, but deep in my heart, I truly want you guys to believe that that I know that the city services are the premier services around here, and we're going to be doing everything that we can to keep those. That the city employees are the best employees in the state. The department heads are the best ones in the state, and we have been working very, very hard and diligently to lighten this burden on you guys. And I promise to keep up that work. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilman Striplin?
Just a brief thanks to the mayor and to the staff of the city for helping to assemble the budget and get us some information to work with. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Wood?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Also, thank you, Mayor, for all the work that you're doing, and all the city employees. Truly, thank you all. It's been it's been a challenging few months to try to get to this point, and our goal is not to hurt any city employee. And I think we're working diligently toward this. I really thank the Finance Committee and those who worked along with us. I'm not going to call any names. I don't want to miss anybody. But and I thank my constituents again for sending me, emails and making the suggestions known. And I want them to know that truly I'm trying to do the right thing up here. I'm prayerful about what I'm doing. A lot of sleepless night, but there's a God above, and He allowed me to sleep. And I truly thank you, and we're going to continue to work toward this. And I just urge all of you all, because this affects every one of us, not only in the city of Prattville, but this is something that's going on all over. If you look right next door, the Board of Education in Montgomery is talking about closing schools. So that tells you that this is happening everywhere, and we're trying our best to work through it. So thank you, and pray that we work through it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Wood. Councilman Reniger? Nothing. Councilman Bowles? Councilman Fank?
Yes, I would actually. I normally don't say a lot at closing up here, but I feel compelled to, because some of the finest people I know are people who work for this city. I've been fortunate enough to run some different companies where I've had to make decisions on hiring and firing, and there's not a single employee in this city that I wouldn't have hired when I had that opportunity. These department heads, you guys are by far the cream of this community, and I applaud you for the work you do. I applaud you guys for tolerating what you have to put up with sometimes, oftentimes, most of the time. I applaud you for staying the course and coming to work and doing the jobs that you do. I applaud you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Fank. A couple of items. One, we heard the mayor introduce his proposed budget. There's a lot of work before us over the coming weeks. We currently have a work session scheduled for next Tuesday, February 22nd. That will be at 6 o'clock at Doster Center. And then 2 days later, on Thursday the 24th, at 6 p.m. in these council chambers, we will continue, if we have additional things that are the subject matter of a work session, to do that. But in addition to that, a public hearing. So depending on how much continued need there is to work through some of the issues. So again, Tuesday, February 22nd, 6 p.m. at Doster is a work session that's open to the public, but the public doesn't participate. It's more to hear the council talk through issues with the mayor and try to reach consensus on any areas that are still to be worked through. And then again, Thursday, February 24th at 6 o'clock here in the council chambers, the public hearing aspect, where we welcome participation and suggestions, thoughts from the audience. I want to say that I think we had 11 different individuals to speak tonight, and I really want to commend each and every one of you for coming down. Some of you are fairly regular and come before us periodically. Others we don't hear from quite as often, but everything that everybody shared with us, I think the folks sitting up here on the dais takes to heart. And I want to thank you for coming down and doing that. Is some of it tough to hear? Is some of it hard to hear? Yes, but it's important. It's extremely important. So thank you for doing that. A couple of comments on the employees. I'm one of those state employees that, work in an agency, and I know a little bit, I guess, about how governmental employment works and those sorts of things, similar to a lot of the things we have at the municipal level. And I can tell you that I personally strive not only to help my organization, which is the State Health Department, be the best it can be, but I work as hard as I can to help my boss be successful. And he stands on the shoulders of the whole agency, several thousand employees, and every single one of them is vitally important. And I see the same thing in the city here with 300 plus employees. And I want to tell you that from my heart, I truly value what you do each and every day. You make a difference every day in the lives of the citizens. You are true public servants. It's a service that in my mind is unparalleled in terms of the difference that you make, and that's across the board. That's I don't even know who our lowest paid employee is. I don't know who our highest paid employee is, but every one of you does that. And I just want to second some of the other comments I've heard tonight, that I truly do value that. I'm ready to move forward. We're going to have some challenges before us. Do I wish I had done some things differently in the past? Yes. If I ask anybody in this audience that same question, I would really ask you if you would be able to say no to that question. Is there anybody who hasn't had an experience that they wouldn't do things differently if they had the opportunity to go back in time or perhaps to make a different choice. I'm ready to move forward. I think Prattville is an awesome place. I think we have so many incredible assets. I think under the mayor's leadership, we're on the right track. We won't always agree with everything you do, Mr. Mayor, or everything you suggest, but working together, we're going to be a team that moves the city forward. So I appreciate all that you've done. And with that, can I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion to adjourn, second.